when I think of the word judgment, I
Mm-hmm.
think of like, are you condemning this person to hell?
Mm-hmm.
And that's like not it. You're not condemning anyone to hell. You're not
Mm-hmm.
saying like, oh my gosh, this person's gonna go to hell because they did this, this, and this. It's
Mm-hmm.
like you're. I think you can make an objective judgment of a situation. Not maybe not a situation, but
Mm-hmm.
of um like a circumstance.
You're just making a call.
You're making a call saying, I don't know if that's like, is that ideal? Probably not, right?
I guess so, but when you're saying is that ideal, probably not. What value is that adding?
I think it's
If it doesn't affect how you talk to
I
them,
guess
if it
it
doesn't.
wouldn't but it wouldn't affect how I would interact with her.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would just I think that's just
It's your
natural.
guidelines to keep yourself from also then being like, I love what she's wearing. I'm gonna dress that like that tomorrow. Is
I
that what you're
guess
saying?
like I guess like it's kind of like I don't know, would you agree or disagree? Like do you think it's inappropriate or not? Like is there it's either you're complacent about it
Mm-hmm.
or you have an opinion.
So I don't think those are the two options. Because I go back to okay, so if I'm going to the best version of myself, right? The
Mhm.
best version of myself is to see any kind of situation and not want to pass a judgment call on anything
Right. Like you're
because
not jumping.
in my mind, if well, again, if we go back to the whole processing God's understanding versus our own
Mhm.
and understanding his nature, if his nature to our best of our ability, at least to what we've concluded so far, is that he is going to um, base it off all the circumstances and all the like what's going on in their head, their intentions, all those.
Mhm.
We have no read on any of that. So if I'm putting the judgment in God's hands and I can't read on any of those indicators, when I see this person in their sports bra, I can't make a judgment because if the judgment is God's judgment and I don't have those factors, I can't make any call. I can make a human call that says, yeah, well, maybe that's not appropriate. But what value does that add? Doesn't add any value to God, doesn't add any value to myself other than I'm saying that wasn't appropriate.
I guess all it does is just reinforce a standard that you live by. I guess that's it, right?
And that's where I get the dangerous. I think it's dangerous because
Because you're putting rules and
the
parameters.
parameters and the rules is what causes though other types of individuals who are very much about the rules
Mhm.
to then make more harsher judgments too, where it's like, well, you can't dress like that. But then that's the point. She can, or if she's coming to church, and I get the fine line of like, oh, but then everyone just come to church. But then if God's just welcoming to them and they really are trying to understand God, then they also will then grow because there is a line, right? I'm not saying as well that because I think this might be coming across like that where let's just be all loosey goosey about everything and whatever.
Yeah.
Like at the end of the day, you have to abide by God's calling you to do better, be better.
Right.
Your goal, like part of it, is to be better as an individual.
Yeah.
So you hope in this case that this person who's then coming into the church is then trying to understand her faith more and then relating to God more. That in her own time she'll come to that terms. But it's
Right.
not. It's
Right.
my job to then help if she has questions to guide her
Mhm.
to be there as an assistant to help push that direction.
Yeah.
But I still see no need for even the judgment. The moment where I go, well, that's not appropriate because you already know, like, and it's irrelevant.
So I
It's irrelevant to me.
so I
Like,
think the interesting thing is like having the thought of that's not it versus like then going to someone and being like, "Did you see?" or
mm-hmm,
like that's I feel like very different. That's where it's like, "Okay, I want to judge this
mm-hmm.
person." I feel like objectively having a thought and not being like I feel like that's where you're just not being complacent about because then you could just say who cares to anything.
So, question then.
Mhm.
Sorry, would it be better though if you had the thought of, oh, wonder why she's dressed like that, and then try to give
That would be a
an
better
optimistic reason?
that'd be a better way to obviously frame that
Mm-hmm.
in your mind. Like I wonder why.
Yeah,
Yeah, for
because the
sure.
thing is,
Because then you think of that person as a person.
what I
Yeah.
agree with you on is not muddying up the standards that you're saying. Again, I get what you're saying
Yeah.
by trying to stand by that, and I stand with you on that, right?
Mhm.
because that's where I think it does get muddy, or you start to water down. That's not muddy, but like watering down the values that the faith is trying to teach you, right?
Right.
But yeah, I'm coming from that place of like optimism, trying to be more understanding, where
Mhm.
my thoughts shouldn't cross my mind. Oh, that's not appropriate. Even if it's not out of judgment, it's not you're not going to treat this person any differently. When you make the objective call, but you don't know those circumstances, you're looking from a human nature of saying, well, that's not appropriate, but on what basis, right?
You know what? That's an interesting point.
Yeah.
I agree with you in the sense that like look at the person as a human
Hmm.
being and say they're not just like what they're wearing.
Yeah.
It's like
Why are you?
I like
Yeah,
that. Like why I wonder why. Like
exactly.
hopefully like I don't know.
Hopefully
Like
things are okay.
yeah, or whatever. Like
Exactly.
I would yeah, I wonder why. That's an interesting way to look at it. It brings it brings the actual like care for the human being
Yeah.
back into the picture.
Yeah.
And I get that. Like I understand it. I do think like obviously that thought stems from an objective like standard.
Hmm.
Um
Yeah, because
but
it stands out to you because you're like, that's out of place.
right. So
But you're not appropriate with then being like, well, that's wrong. It's not wrong. It's just, yeah, I'm
yeah.
gonna try to understand you now. What's going
Mhm.
on?
Exactly. That's interesting. Yeah.
Hmm.
I think that's a good way to approach.